Whoa, and I didn't even see if it's live, but I think we're live. Hi, everybody. Brent Schlenker here, TLD chat today. I'm here from beautiful, lovely University of Utah in Utah, I guess that would be right. Salt Lake City, Utah, I think is what I was trying to say. I need another cup of coffee to get going. I'm here for the Learning Dev Camp event, and we'll be keynoting right after TLD chat today. So I think there is a collection of TLDCers here at the event as well. I don't know if you're all gathered in the lobby or whatnot, hanging out and going to be joining us shortly. But I see Katie on there. Hi, Katie. Thanks for hanging out with us. For those folks that are new, first of all, I just want to let everybody know we've got a fantastic guest today. So if it sounds like Brent's just rambling on, just let me do it for a couple minutes here, and then we're going to jump right in and have a great conversation with Bob Mosier today. So give me just 2 minutes to tell you guys all about, especially you new folks, about what TLDC is all about. So TLDC started off as a conference, and in 2016, and we had a fantastic event, had so much support from the community, and really realized that what we were doing was needed and wanted and was enjoyable for folks. So Luis and I decided to keep it going. So here we are. And except we also decided to keep up this sort of online live streaming chat idea going a little bit more strongly. So that's where TLD chat came from. But we're also a community. So the C in TLDC can stand for many different things. So currently we are a community. We have a chat, and we also have a conference. And this year's conference isn't even this year. It's going to be next year. I know, very strange. But January 29th and 30th, in Phoenix, Arizona, we'll be doing TLDC 18, skipping 17 just for a multitude of reasons, but wanting to put this, especially since we wanted to have it in Phoenix. I don't think anybody wants to be in Phoenix in the summertime, but I do know, because I live here, it feels like everybody in the world wants to be in Phoenix in January. So while the city gets a little crowded, it's also a fantastic place to be. So we're really looking forward to having TLDC 18 this year in Phoenix, Arizona, at my favorite geek chic location, Galvanize, in downtown Phoenix. So we're definitely looking forward to that. So hit up the website, tldc18.com, and register for that. And folks, I had dinner last night with a bunch of folks from TLDC, or that hang out with us, and they're here at the event. And we were talking about, the donations and helping us keep this TLD chat alive and the TLDC community alive. And there are a lot of good things in the works that we can do to have you help us keep this thing going a little bit, help us upgrade some of the tech and move a little bit more quickly into the future. And so there's a lot of great ideas brewing, but if you feel like you got some value from today's hour, or if you were, hanging out all week, or if you've been hanging out for a couple months and you've been getting some value, put a couple bucks in the tip jar. I like to say, tip your waitresses, and we'll make sure you guys have a good time. And we will also make sure we add some value to your lives as well, because our whole theory about the training, learning, and development community is that we're here to help you do the work of training, learning, and development. And that doesn't always mean instructional design. It doesn't always mean building courses. A lot of times it's how to deal with the politics of the business you're working in, just how to push projects through, how to get the work done, how to work with your peers. We have the 5 rings of focus. Go ahead and cue the song if we had it. But, everybody knows we start with you, then we move out to projects, then we move out to teams, then we move out to the organization that you work in, and then the industry. We try to strike a chord in all of those different areas and make sure that you are improving yourself, improving your projects, improving your teams, and improving the organization that you work in, and in turn sharing that back with the industry. And that's kind of what we like to try and do by getting fabulous, fabulous guests like Bob Mosier here today. So I'm going to bring him in, and we can get started. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Brent. How are you?
I'm out of breath now.
A lot to cover there.
Yeah, it's good time. So, I kind of feel like, man, you and I haven't talked in a long time. So just for selfish reasons, I feel like we should just sort of maybe catch up, or maybe we should just catch everybody up on, start with like just kind of who you are, maybe how you got to where you are today, and, some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, happy to do that. It's great to reconnect, my friend. Yeah, no, my gosh, everyone, I've been at this forever. You can tell from the gray hairs. Yeah, this is I'm celebrating my 33rd year. How's that, bud?
Wow.
Now it's a fairly interesting journey, because of all things, I started out wanting to teach 8-year-olds. I was an elementary school teacher, and that's my pedigree. And then somewhere along the line, about 4 or 5 years into that, what I realized was that I had a passion for technology, and it was just emerging in schools. Got my master's in computer education, as we called it back then, and then found my way into adult learning. It was an interesting deal. And then over the years, it's just, I'd like to say it was intentional, but it's mostly been happenstance. I work for a large, one of the first e-learning companies. You may know them as Skillsoft now, fairly big, well-known organization. I was a senior leader at Microsoft in the learning team there for a number of years. And then of late, the last 10, have been on my own in my own consulting company with my colleague, Dr. Gottfredson, you'll hear a bit about today, and really made the evolution from training to performance. It's been my passion to talk about what we'll talk about today, that in all those years of instruction and schooling, I didn't have one class quote PowerPoint, on this topic, which baffles me because of what we do for a living. So that's been sort of my way around things.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, you followed kind of, I didn't start out as a grade school teacher, but I always look back whenever I think about the conversations we've had, and just knowing a little bit about that background that you've gone through. We've kind of followed a similar path, throughout our careers, and so I've always sort of had this kindred spirit with you, I must say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I must say, but yeah, so it's so the whole performance support thing. Let's just jump right in, and let's just talk about it. Unless let me do something else first. Let's go to the chat room and see what you guys want to talk about. Have you guys clicked on the Q&A? I know for some of you the features are still kind of new. And have you seen the questions that we have? Don't forget, you can vote those up if you want us to answer one more than another. Let us know. But, let's just, we got another vote. So let's just go with the first one. Instead of jumping into performance support, let's talk about this. I think it's a great question. So why has L&D ignored the workflow for so long?
I don't know if this. I don't know if we've ignored it, candidly, but what I think we've done, at least I know in my schooling, I'd love to hear from our colleagues here on the chat as well, is that I think we all know ADDIE, right? I mean, that lovely acronym's been in our vernacular for forever, right?
Right.
So I don't think it's that we've ignored the workflow. I think it's that we always kind of assumed that. That's what we were getting, that was what we were impacting. It was sort of a, chicken or an egg thing, and what I realized in my work about 9 years ago was that I really wasn't. A dear friend of mine, Dr. Gottfredson, who's now my business partner, came along and challenged me and said, I was journeying into blended learning at the time, which, we all have talked about and try to do, and it wasn't blending, candidly. It wasn't working. And he looked at me and said, the bottom line is that, are we really targeting the right thing here? Are we blending learning or are we blending training?
Yeah.
And I, Brent, I was like, is that semantics or is it legit? And he said, no, it's not semantics at all. There is a journey that learners are on.
Yeah.
And we target certain parts of it, and we assume that the workflow is the inevitable benefactor of that, and that learners can survive in it. But what Con really, and I see folks, some people mentioning Con here on the side here. What Con challenged me to do 15 years ago was, look, do we target the workflow first? Do we, I wrote a fairly controversial article in my years for CLO magazine at one point that said, do we teach swimming or prevent drowning? And so the point was, do we, if you only have a week to teach someone to swim, do you care if they can do rotary breathing or the breaststroke, or do you care that they don't drown if they jump in a pool, over 5 feet deep? So it really changed that. That was a pivotal point for me. It really changed my view of what we are tasked to build, and more importantly, in what order. I used to build a ton of training. I used to build a ton of e-learning. And then if I had time, I built job aids, to oversimplify it. Now I build for the workflow first. I first build tools and technologies and whatever solutions that will help a learner support themselves as independently as possible in the workflow, as contextually as they can. And then once that is built, I build training to back it up. It sounds kind of simplistic, but candidly, it's a huge shift, and it was a huge shift for me as a designer, and candidly for a lot of the customers that I work with.
Yeah, and I'm in the exact same spot currently in my thinking, and I'm guilty as well in my early days of being on that training bandwagon and being very excited about building the best darn 18-hour long online learning class I could possibly build.
You better believe it.
I mean, it was, we were motivated, right? We thought we were the best, and we knew we could build the best. And we went after it. And relatively speaking, I think we did a fairly decent job. The only problem was that nobody enjoyed sitting for 18 hours or, even 1 hour these days.
And you're spot on. I mean, and I want to be careful whenever I do this talk, and I do these a lot, is that people sometimes have I had a person walk up to me at a conference once and said, "Bob Mosier, I know you. You're the I hate the classroom guy." And I was like, well, wait. Whoa. Where the heck did that come from? And he said, well, I've heard you talk. You're this, workflow thing, and that the classroom's terrible, and that we do too much of it. And it's like, no. I mean, it's not that at all. In fact, I've always argued that I am a huge classroom e-learning advocate. Here's my challenge, my friends. Here's what I think. Here's how I position it. I think we have done those a disservice in the way in which we position them. We have asked training, and you fill in the modality, right, for too long to carry the burden of things it doesn't do well.
Yeah.
How's that, right? I mean, honestly,
right.
If we come up with a way to allow the classroom to do what it does best, allow e-learning to do it, and let everything else it shouldn't do get out of its way, it is, and I've seen it, become stunning as a learning modality. But in and of itself, it's so unfair to put people in 18 hours of anything, 5 days of whatever, and assume when they come out they'll be able to apply, transfer, or master that. It's not training's fault. It's the nature of the method and the design we've been clinging to for too long.
Yeah, and I think for all of us, I think I would encourage everyone, if you have not taken in a course or taken some sort of training in a long time, you should continue to take it to remember how much you hate it and how frustrating it is, right?
Yeah.
Because quick anecdote. So I started at this new company, EdCast. I spent an hour with 4 or 5 other people learning the administrative functions of the software, right? And a really, really, really smart guy that knows those features in and out, went on a WebEx with us, went through every last one of us, showed us the whole thing, right? And then like 4 or 5 days later, I was asked, can you do this one particular thing? Can you get this done? And I was like, I don't remember how to do that. And the response was, well, didn't you get trained by Josh? And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
We're a learning company. We should know better.
See, and you know what's so unfair about that, and poor Josh guy, right? Is that you look how this is where you guys, we have to start slicing and dicing this differently. Unfortunately, Brett, training was judged that happened days before on a different moment in time than you were being asked to perform. And so here's the problem, you guys, is if we're a one-hit wonder, if training is our only tool in the toolkit, this is what happens to us. 3-4 months goes by. We get all the 5s on the evaluations. People love us. They want to send us Christmas cards. They think we changed their lives. Get all that. Right? Those are stunning. And training, again, does that in ways I don't think anything else can. But here's the problem. 3-4 months later, you're asked to fill out a form or manage a client or sell a product or lead a group. You fill in the topic, and you can't. Right? So here's what happens. You go, oh my gosh, well, training must have stunk. Training must have been terrible, because here 3 months later, you can't remember or perform that thing that we know you were trained on. You passed the test. We gave you a certification, all that stuff, right? But here's the thing, you guys. Knowledge does not beget application, right? And training is a great knowledge transfer tool. It's a great school up tool. I'm not bashing any of those things. It's not a great performance tool. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
it's just not architected.
Yeah, I should be very careful and just say I am not bashing on.
No. I know you weren't
on it either, and I love these guys dearly, and I am absolutely thoroughly enjoying the job currently. But I point that out just as it's always a reminder to myself that wow, I'm the one that's out there talking about this. The learner forgets 90% of whatever after the first 9 minutes, and you forget how real that data is until you are that learner experiencing that flood of information over an hour. And even while this is the weirdest thing, even during that hour, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I get it.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'll totally remember this. But then give it like hours or a few days, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, because we don't, Brent. Everyone's throwing around the 70-20-10 thing. Everyone argues about the math and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to even go there, frankly, because that's not the point. The principle is we learn most in the workflow, right? We learn to apply. Let me clarify. We learn to apply in the workflow. We internalize things through application and trial and error, right?
Yep.
But without training, that's a scary moment, right? You don't throw. I was reading people over here in the back channel about this whole thing with throwing people in a pool and people swimming. I mean, where I'm not going is, God forbid you throw a 4-year-old into a deep end and say, hey, that's life. Good luck getting back to the side. We would never do that, right? We would never do that, right? But the point is that is that I don't know if after an hour lesson with me on swimming, I would walk away and want that kid to jump in without me, right? So my point, you guys, is in the 70-20-10 thing is try this. Try designing for the 71st.
Yeah.
Try designing for the 71st. Again, this is what totally rocked my world was when I changed my focus, not my deliverables. I still design training. I still design e-learning, right? But I changed my focus to I'm going to design contextual, accessible, performance support deliverables first. And then I'm going to backfill with instruction to support those deliverables and school up my learners on the most critical foundational stuff. Totally buy into that. But it dramatically changes the way you design and teach.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's and this is great, by the way. I just want to say I haven't actually heard you specifically talk about it in that way before. And I think this is excellent for everybody to hear because it meshes nicely with my conversations around iterative development, right? It's kind of along the same lines. I've always told people, listen, why is it that we sit in our ivory towers, we collect all of this data, and by data, I mean content, and we've got all this content. We hoard it for 6 weeks to 6 months to however long it takes. We slice and dice it. We sprinkle our magic instructional design dust on it, build a course, and release it. And then there's still a lot of content left on the cutting room floor. I've totally flipped that in my previous work where I was creating training and whatnot, and just said, give me all of the content first, and then I release it. I'm like, everybody needs this, right? Get the content out there. Even it doesn't matter if it's instructionally sound or not. Somebody somewhere is going to be looking for that content. And the biggest problem that I see that the training departments can solve, but we don't because we don't feel like it's our job, is finding the right content and giving people access to that content.
Here's the thing. I would argue, Brent, that our calling has fundamentally shifted. I've been in this 30 years, right? And so back in the old days, without all we have at our disposal today, you came to rooms to sit through people like me because there was no other way to get that stuff. Right. So it made perfect sense. Yeah. Right. And so did this model, which was birthed out of the 40s and 50s when people were trying to get schooled up post World War, all that kind of, right, where Eddie was born, blah, 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 all that stuff. There was mass influx of training and knowledge, right? Well, here's the thing. We live in a very different age now. Yeah. Right. We've gone from, as a colleague of mine said, we've gone from a world of scarcity to a world of abundance. And so, and the danger of a world of abundance is not that it's out there, it's getting to it. Yeah. It's accessibility. Right? So our job becomes one of orchestration, or design, you can fill that word in, but then bestowing and disseminating like we used to be before, right? So when I build those performance support tools first, right? I build them on fundamentally 3 principles. Number 1 is accessibility. Embeddedness. How do I make sure this stuff is available, right? Physically, this is a very physical thing, and based on job role, context, workflow. If people can't get to it, they won't consume it. Right. Number 2, contextual ness, right? Meaning people come to these things in the context. Workflow is contextual by the nature of the word. So I come to it to change margins in Word, to help a disgruntled employee, to sell a product. Right, so I come with the context of the deliverable, get everything else out of my way, but things that help in that context. Right, so the next thing is contextual. The last principle is we call it the just enough principle, which means this is very different for us because in instruction we love to dump it, lots of stuff. Right, how could that not be helpful? In the world of the workflow, one thing we fundamentally realize is that people want just enough to get to the solution. If they want more, they will ask for it. Yep. So as opposed to this, here's a SharePoint site with 60 clicks. And how could that not be helpful? No. Give me 2. Yeah. And if those 2, based on the context, right? And if those 2 are not helpful, then give me 4. Then give me 8. Then give me, right? Yep. And let me as the learner navigate the content based on need and context. So besides the technology, what I hear you saying is that it's over the last 50 plus years, right? It's the control that has changed, right? Correct. We used to, and learners used to need somebody else to control it because they needed somebody else to say,
I'm in this classroom. I've organized all this material for you because it is hard to find. It's hard to get a hold of. It's hard to organize. It's hard to get to. There was limited access.
Yep.
And now with the technology, we've completely flipped that whole entire model. There's so much content out there. It's so easy to access. Everybody can access it. Now it's our responsibility to be able to weed through all of it and say, I just want this one thing. They get that one thing. Oh, wait a minute. That sparked something else. Give me something more. And they ask for it. And the system or the instructor or whoever is able, or Google for that matter, or YouTube is able to then give you something else. Oh, you liked both of those? Maybe I can recommend, a couple other things, right? And then you
let me layer something else on top of this that we have found to be very important in our work, is that at first we were all about accessibility, right? And making sure that everything was accessible. What we learned is that if I'm trying to do, fix my dishwasher, let's get very out of context here, right?
Sure.
If I'm a plumber, I need a job aid of 5 steps because I'm a plumber. I mean, I don't need what is plumbing, what is hot and cold, what is
how do they build pipes?
So what we learned is it's not only accessibility to assets, it's what do those assets do?
Yeah.
Right? And assets fundamentally do 2 things. Fundamentally, now there's layers below this, right? They either teach or they support. And those really are 2 very different things, Brent. So what people get nervous about the conversation we're having is, well, what if the person doesn't know anything? And so you just start throwing at them all these resources. It's not helpful. And it gets back to the drowned or swimming thing. I totally get it. Yeah. Right. So if I'm new to plumbing, then the asset I may seek first is what the heck is plumbing? I mean, what before I start cutting hoses and I might want a little education on installing dishwashers.
Right.
Then once I get that base, then you can give me the YouTube that shows me how to hook the hose up and the job aid that does the 3 steps on running the electrical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So where I'm going with this is the more we can.
Choice.
Yes, exactly. And guys, here's the thing: learners make phenomenal choices.
Yeah.
This is where adults. Well, surprise. So this is where adults really are much better than children. I mean, in this, right? I mean, we have context, we have maturity. We've been burnt by touching a stove, right? So we failed a lot, and it's been painful. So we're cautious learners by nature, frankly. Children, right? Terrifying without bumpers. Right. But adults really are we got to give them more credit here. Right. They're highly motivated in the workflow. They get the problem they're trying to solve. They want to get to the solution as quickly as possible. They do not want to hurt themselves and others. I mean, really, these are fundamental tenets of how adults think.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So if we give them a well-architected support environment that they understand and can navigate and it makes sense and the assets are apparent between what's learning and support, and they really do brilliantly on their own.
Yeah.
We don't more than we give them credit.
Yeah, we don't give the learners enough credit. And I think we give ourselves, especially with the Addy model back from the day, right? We give ourselves too high a level of importance with that whole analysis side. We analyze the hell out of everything and think what we have come up with the one best solution that's going to fit the problem, and yay, hooray for us.
So let me give you another really cool principle to this whole thing, because again, I'm reading the sidebar over here and kind of keep back to the chats and stuff, because here's what also scares IDs when they hear this is that, okay, wait, how do you then decide what's taught and what's not? Because what I'm saying here, you guys, here's my firm belief. I believe that there's no better teacher than experience. Ask anyone. When I've done this in front of 1,000 instructors worldwide, I have a slide where I put up about 9 things and say, look, forget your ID, take the hat off and stuff. Just look at this list. In your lifetime, what's taught you the best and helped you apply and remember? Notice I didn't say just teach, but I said helped you apply and remember. And unanimously, trial and error, on-the-job experience, these win every time. Not classroom e-learning coaching. Nope, those never win. Right. So here's my pretense then. If we as a trade are going to say those are the best tools, why don't we use them first? Right? Why don't we use them first? So I get that. So then here's what comes with that question. Okay, then Bob, help me then here. Help me prioritize. Let me give you a simple approach. One thing when we sit down with those assets and the lists of tasks, Brent, right? So we've done the analysis. We've got these lists of tasks to be performed, right, and learned. My colleague Don Gottfriedson came up with a really interesting rubric called critical skills analysis, because everything has to have a name. So we call it critical skills analysis, right? And it has to have the word analysis at the end. Critical skills analysis. Right. So like Addie and stuff. So what this means is he has a rubric of 1 to 7. And rubric, we all love rubrics, right? Very definitive. You can tell the difference between a 6 and a 5 and a 1 and a 4. I mean, the rubric, it helps us understand. So, but here's to simplify the thing. If something gets a 1, it means if the person fails at doing it, the operative word here is fails in the workflow. Nothing happens. I mean, nothing detrimental, bad. No one dies. No one. Literally, the learner. Okay, so maybe there's a bump in the road where they might not be as productive as they could, but they remediate and get back right away. Okay, a 7, you can imagine. A 7 means if the person fails, and we use words, honestly, Brent, like death, legal, So a 7 is that.
Danger,
a 1,
danger.
Yes, and and obviously a 4, right, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Here's what we do, you guys. We say, look, and this is just a principle, not a rule. Yeah. If it's a 4 or lower, I'm not teaching it in class, because why would I? If it's a 4 or lower, no one gets hurt if they fail, and if I give them performance support, they will learn it on their own better than I could teach it. How's that? Now, if it's a 5, 6, or 7, not going to do it. I'm not going to put someone in harm's way. So therefore, again, principally based, we teach the 5, 6, and 7s with performance support in the classroom, but we let them learn the others in the workflow through performance support where they learn better.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Let me, I had us starting recording the second question there. So I think you pretty much covered it, unless there was something else you wanted to add to what are the best ways to get started in performance support and workflow learning. You want to just touch on that real quick?
Yeah, well, it's pick a project, what's wrong? Boy, that word was way too big. Pick a performance area. Now, listen to the words I used. I didn't say pick a project. I didn't say pick a topic like leadership, or again, that's our chunk size of Addie. That's way too big. Yeah. Go into an organization and sit down with and I love someone said earlier, this really forces us to get much more into the line of business, into the manager level, the performers themselves, more so than training ever required. And you sit down with them and say, look, what keeps you awake at night? Give me, if you're as a manager, if you could correct 3 performance things about your people, what would they be? They don't turn their reports in on time. They don't. They'll get very operational for you. They won't give you courses. They won't say, I want them to sell better. No, they will list things that are highly performance focused tasks. Yep. That's what you build. You build performance support for those very specific tasks to remediate, support, and teach them. And then you build from there. The chunk size, Brent, is so much. You talk about micro learning. Holy cow! The chunk size of these things is so much smaller than I know I ever worked on in my old days of alpha, beta, classes. Yeah, perfect. Hey, I'm going to take my half-hour break, a little 5 minutes late. Yeah, I'm sure it's my fault. I told you this gets live for everyone. I know. Yeah, between you and I, normally I skip it all together when things are getting hot like this. But I think this is a good place. I think it's a good opportunity for us to give everybody in the chat even a chance to just kind of take a deep breath, kind of soak up. I think you covered a lot of interesting stuff that I think was
a little bit mind-blowing to some people for the first time hearing you talk about it. Maybe they haven't heard you speak before. So let's give them a chance to kind of soak it all in a little bit, maybe ask some questions in the chat.
Please.
And then we'll get to these other questions. I'm going to click done on this one. And I'm just going to get this screen back up here. And I'll do my little 4 or 5 minute thing here. And then, yeah, for sure. So feel free to get in that chat with these folks and talk to them. And just to let everybody know, because I totally forgot to talk about it specifically, you can find more about Bob and his company and the work that he does at applysynergies.com. Bob, you can go ahead and put that link in the chat if you want to, just so everybody sees it. We have some outstanding help in the chat most days where people collect the notes for us, and then we get it. We post a notes list on the website, so everything that was posted in the chat gets saved and collected. So we always appreciate that from the chat group. You guys are fantastic. We love you. But yeah, so everybody, I would highly encourage you to check out. And if you have not seen Bob or Con speak at any of your local events, of any of the many varieties and flavors, do so. I would highly, highly encourage you to do that without question. And maybe someday even, and we'll talk about maybe this towards the end, Bob, but maybe we could get you and Con both on here someday and talk about this stuff. But anyways, we'll get back to that in a second. But everybody, hey, listen, let me just cover some of the usual topics that I do while you guys continue to chat and talk a little bit about TLDC and TLDC 18 coming up. We are very excited about doing TLDC, and maybe Bob has had so much fun hanging out with us today, he'll consider coming out and being a part of TLDC 18. But maybe we can talk about that later too. Yeah, so coming out to, because remember, Phoenix in January, it's beautiful. It's lots of golf, it's the weather's beautiful. It's good times. But we're going to be hanging out at Galvanize, like what I like to call Geek Chic. It's a fantastic location. Luis and I have scattered it out. I will actually be out there this Friday, and I'll be getting some pictures and maybe even some video. But I'm meeting with somebody there from a learning company. He was originally a neuroscientist and got himself into the training and learning space just kind of accidentally, like we all sort of tend to do. At least most of the people that I've met these days. But anyways, the event's going to be fantastic. I would highly encourage you guys to take a look at your calendars, at least block it out for now if you can't register right away. But keep it on your radar and join us in Phoenix January 29th and 30th next year in Phoenix, Arizona. It's going to be a good time. And again, if you guys are getting any sort of value from today's show, please feel free to toss a couple bucks in the tip jar, and it just helps us to see what you guys like and what you don't like. And if you've already done that, don't forget to share with all of your friends. We got a good 20 minutes left here before I start to wrap this thing up. So if you share out to your Facebook friends or to Twitter, they still have an opportunity to jump in and hang out for some good conversation with us. But they can also always go back to tldc.us and check out the replays and check out the notes, all of the great links and the resources that we talk about here will get collected and put on that website as well. So it's all fantastic stuff. And I'm probably going to be borrowing a lot of the conversation this morning for my keynote this afternoon. So this was good prep for me in general. So how are you guys doing over in the chat? Is everybody feeling good?
We're doing good.
Yeah.
We're doing good.
Good. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I haven't been
great stuff.
Yeah, I haven't been watching to see
it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good. As long as everybody's happy. Christy's got a question for you, Bob.
Yeah, there's a couple in there. So let me kind of go back into you guys and we jump in a bunch. Some tools. It was asked about earlier. It's funny, guys, because part of how I also been in this industry long enough. start telling whether or not a discipline's maturing is whether or not people throw money at it. You know, I mean, it's kind of a fundamental business thing, right? Well, we're tracking about 6 to 8 suppliers in this space, 4 pretty predominant ones. And one thing Brent, you were gracious enough to let me share here is that, guys, you know, this is a great hour, and I hope it's been helpful. And would love to follow up with any or all of you. But at the same time, I am also part of a much larger community. Con and I host what's called the Performance Support Community. We just crossed 78 or 5,800 members worldwide. Been around for 9 years. We talk about all this stuff, this topic all the time. We don't try to be everything, you guys. Candidly, we're not across the training industry. We're not in e-learning specifically. We're not. This is because we really just felt we needed focus.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a community that specifically talks about and focuses on, and many suppliers are members of how to do this performance first thing well. Right. So at the end, I can give you a URL to go to check it out. Totally optional. It's free to join and be a part of.
Yeah.
Look at that. There you go, Luis. Thank you. So perfect.
Awesome.
And so basically the guys, the big ones we are tracking are, and if you don't mind, Brent, I'll just, and by the way, full disclosure, don't have stock, buy, support. I'm not in the, guys, I'm not in the tool space. I am a consumer.
Yep. Like
the rest of you. So, but these are all wonderful partners that we work with depending on the deliverable. So, Panviva, P-A-N-I-V-A, very strong. Intuitive. I know you guys can rewatch this again later. So, yep. And by the way, if you go in the performance support community, there's an entire thread on supplier profiles. They're all in there. Ask Delphi. We pronounce it Ask Delphi in the States, frankly, depending on how you spell it. Yeah. Very popular and a very, very, very good tool. WalkMe is okay. It's kind of very, very technology specific, but it's okay. Acima is another one. These are all I think that way I made 5 or 6. Yes, these are the ones that are dedicating themselves to this contextual, design stuff. So
there's this company too that does a pretty good job. Yeah. I'll have to give you a demo sometime.
Yeah, love to. Absolutely. So these are, and again, that's what I love about this world. It just reaffirms for me that the compass of north is shifting.
Yeah.
Right? It's not and please take this right, but it's not the Captivates of the world anymore and the Lector, these kinds of things that dominated the landscape when it was training first.
Yep.
Right. Brent, I'm totally, there's a time in maturity when training dominated the landscape. Yeah. Well, I think there's been a fundamental shift to context and workflow.
Yeah.
And therefore, many of these wonderful companies like the shirt you're wearing have emerged and are realizing that the tip of the sword might be a bit different than we always thought it was.
Now, another adding business value, right? It's like we're not talking about gauging butts in seats as our value or gauging how did they score on the test. We're actually looking at, all that stuff is kind of good and it's still okay. We're not completely ditching the classroom, but what we're saying is what we really want is to impact the business and to add value. And that means getting everybody what they need right in their environment, right? The context, giving them the ability to search and to discover and to find exactly what they need and to get it to them on what else? The new mobile devices and all that kind of stuff in the format that they need it in.
I think the biggest aha for me, Brent, in the last year that again was reaffirming for me that we're going in the right direction with this is we all know about compliance. Oh my gosh, we hate that word, right? And what we've done to it is sinful, to be honest with you. But it's I get it, and I get checking the box. I always say I don't want to board a plane with a pilot that's not compliant, right?
Yeah.
But compliance alone, not really, right? And so, but we've always chased compliance with assessment. We've always chased compliance with testing, right? And frankly, it's knowledge-based testing.
Yep.
Right, it really is. It's now it might be scenario based by question. I get all that, but we don't follow around a doctor in the workflow with a clipboard and make sure they're compliant. It's not how we do it.
Yeah,
really, and right. The compliance boards don't do that. they're not, if they couldn't if they wanted to, frankly. They're not staffed.
Right.
But here's the thing that was exciting for me is last year, 2 hospitals, think about healthcare, right? Dangerous stuff. Talk about critical skill of, critical skill
above
rate,
4.
Right? Lots of 5, 6, and 7s, right? They recently won 2 awards in the compliance arena for not compliance training, not an assessment thing, but for performance support systems that they implemented in their hospitals to address compliance. Not to dominate compliance and be the only thing to help. Their approach to the hospitals was, look, we will still check the box, but to be sure you remain so and truly are compliant on the job, we're going to build these complementary systems that go beyond. And when the auditing board saw that, they were like, this is what we want.
Yeah.
And they were recognized at the national level. That to me, Brent, says your point that we're shifting. There's a fundamental ground shift going on here from training only to performance first. And it's a powerful shift.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Hey, let me make sure I'm getting these questions right, and I'm clicking the button that actually puts a link to the answer to these questions right. So did we cover, could you recommend ways to measure ROI on using electronic performance support systems?
Yeah, great. I'm happy to. And then I also did want to answer another one. Someone asked about IDs and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And whoever asked that, it scrolled off the screen. I will come back to that. So here's what I love about it. I've been chasing ROI for 25 years. I hated the acronym, right?
Yep.
And here's why I hated it, because it with training only, don't get mad at me, people here, but if you're familiar with Kirkpatrick, right? Kirkpatrick's levels and Phillips, the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you have training only, you can't go higher than 2.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at me. But you can't go higher than 2 because training does not do 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
It does not do it, people. And I'm not. Please hear me. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm trying to be fair here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be fair here, and to hold training up to level 4. It's so unfair.
Yeah.
So unfair to training because that's not what it does.
This sets us up for failure.
So for years we tried to do level 4 ROI on a training course or level 4 ROI on an e-learning course. And guess what? We almost never got there, and if we did, it might not have been true.
Right.
Frankly.
Yeah.
Right. So here's the thing: when you embed EPSSs, now that's a whole other acronym, right? EPSSs are electronic performance support systems. They are the manifestation of the discipline, right? So there's performance support, my friends, is a discipline, right? And EPSS is the tool. It's like carpentry to a hammer.
Okay.
Right. So if you want to do performance support, you need to play in this world. Now, EPSSs are one of them. Checklists are others. I get it. It's paper-based stuff. But to your point, Brent, with the immersion and the immersiveness of technology, EPSSs are winning the day. And I've seen them made for everything from soft skills to hard skills, however you want to call that.
Yep.
Right? So back to the question. Here's why I love them, because here's the thing. If you try to correlate someone getting an A in a test in a class to 6 months later performing it well, good luck with that. Right? That correlation is very hard to correlate. Agreed?
Yeah.
But EPSSs live in the moment. I can track who does what, when, how often, and under what context.
Yeah.
And I can find out how well they performed. Well, you guys add that all up. That's Kirkpatrick 4, 5, and right?
Beyond. Yeah.
Yeah. So these systems living in the context, they watch behavior, they track behavior, they adaptive learning, they adapt based on behavior. Yeah. The Amazon, right?
Yeah, the recommendation models, the machine learning, and the AI that's in all of these systems today. I mean,
they're brilliant. So I can correlate successful performance or frankly bad performance to the use or not use of these tools and remediate and assign a grade to it. In a way, in my 30 years of doing this, I could never do before. Now, let me ask real quick, the person who someone asked me earlier about this ID thing. Would we rather school up and unlearn experienced IDs or do this with newbies? Well, guess what, folks? One of our most difficult stakeholder when we do this, you guys, for our clients are learning teams, candidly. Only because my gosh, we don't realize how sheep dipped we are.
I was going to say, you too. Like the biggest roadblocks to anything, doing any of this new stuff, just working with EdCast and talking. It's like the tip of the day is avoid the L&D department. Go right straight to IT or go to the business unit, right? But at all costs, avoid talking to the L&D folks because they don't get it.
And it's so sad. And and I'm an L&D guy. I mean, guys, come on. I'm going to be total transparency here. Yeah. I am an L&D guy, and so I always tell the quick story. When a dear friend of mine asked Con and I to teach our first workshop on this discipline. So think of we got asked. Supposedly we're this experts, right? We were asked to do a workshop on performance support. What did we do? We built a class with books and PowerPoint. And we were literally, I love the story because we're literally sitting in that class the first day and we're going around the room, right? How are you here? Yeah. And one of the students says this, well, Bob, here's the thing I'm excited about. I'm not excited about this class. I am so excited for the performance support stuff you've built for us because this is a workshop on performance support. So obviously you're going to give us all these. And I looked over at Con and he looked at me and we went, oh my God, we got nothing. So where I'm going with this is, I get it. To change a lifetime of learning. Yeah. We're so vested in Addie, right? And for all the right reasons. But my gosh, to re-engineer the thinking and the design approach is hard for good IDs. That's why they're good IDs.
Yeah. Think about it.
So there's definitely some reschooling.
Yeah. Well, think about I think you've probably gotten this too, right? When speaking at events, you get the same feedback, right? You're talking about all this cutting edge e-learning and all this kind of stuff, and then somebody will always indefinitely or for certainly say the same comment, right? You're telling us all this great stuff, and you're telling us, but
and Chrissy just said, and you're doing it
to us. Yeah, you're doing it in PowerPoint, and you're preaching it, and we're sitting in a classroom all lined up. Like, tell us how you're going to be showing us.
Well, and honestly, Brent, that's where the performance support community was born out of for us, right? We were like, look, we've got to walk the walk here, right? We've got to provide performance support on performance support. Yeah. Right. Yep. And so we've built a performance support tool on designing performance support. How's that? Right. Because again, if we're going to, right, we need to drink our own Kool-Aid here, so, but again, to my friends in chat, it's my mom once said, my mom is a third grade school teacher and for 30 something years. And I once asked her about, doing this well. And she said, Bob, although there will be revolutionary technologies and methodologies in teaching, they will only ever be adopted in an evolutionary way. That's an insightful quote from a really good teacher, right? And what she was saying, you guys, was if you got to crawl, walk, run into this. Yeah. You're not, because it's not just us who have to change. We have organizations that pivot on training. Do they walk into your office and say these words? I would like 5 days of training on leadership, please. Have we ever heard these words? I would like 4 e-learning courses on sales. We don't walk into doctors and go, I would like 9 Advil because my arm hurts. Yeah. Right? We don't pre-prescribe anything in an area we don't know. But in our world, we've taught these people that the answer first is training. Yeah. And then the problem follows that. Yeah. We got to invert that, and it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, a quick anecdote here that kind of started to. Well, I'd already been in this camp, but again, every once in a while, I need to be hit over the head with a bat and reminded. When I was ramping up a training department at a data center recently, I remember, some newer folks and whatnot would always come to the training guy. Hey, Brent, do you have any training materials on XYZ? And at the time, we were just ramping up. We had nothing. So I was like, my answer was always no, we don't have anything yet. We're working on it. But the guy that I'm talking to that's the subject matter expert is so-and-so. He knows everything that there is to know about this. Guess what? I never saw that person again. Next person come in, ask me something else. Say, Brent, do you have any training on this? Oh, yes, we do. But the class isn't for a week. But I know the guy that, he's over in cubicle something. He can get you everything you need to know. Never saw the person again. Oh, and guess what? They never joined the class.
My dearest friend is a doctor. we were obviously literally, we went to school together. I was going up through education. He was going up through medical school. And we had these very philosophical conversations that friends have. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And at one point he said, Bob, here's the thing. My job as a doctor is to never see my patients again. He goes, Is that your job as a teacher? And, think about that.
Yeah,
We have these, we've got this, level 1, intermediate, advanced, this training track that people need to follow and stay on, and don't get ahead and don't jump off, or don't. There's a lot to be said there about, is our job to make independent learners or dependent learners?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but someone asked about the mom quote, and I'll repeat it again.
Yeah.
The quote was, although there will be, here's the key word, revolutionary methodology and technology in education, and there will always be, they will only ever be adopted in an evolutionary way. Right. And so we go to these conferences, Brent, and we see these keynotes, and we see a tool. We're a very shiny penny business. We did this to e-learning in the early days, and we should never make that mistake again. We called it just-in-time learning, and it frankly wasn't. and we shut classrooms down across the globe because people could just log on and learn now. And we did such a discredit to that shiny penny. We didn't let it find its place. Yeah. Right? We've got to be we've got to be responsible here in doing this. We've got to let learners learn to do this.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just throw a mobile device at them and say, well, then, go off and do it on your own. It's unfair. We've got to do the critical skills analysis. We've got to contextualize the tool right. We still have to teach.
Yeah.
But let's teach what's manageable, important, and can be remembered, not drown them in stuff that they can't remember, a day later.
And I think, Bob, that is the fantastic way to end the day.
Oh, we could go on forever. No, thanks so much, really, and everyone in the chat for your patience and tolerance.
Yeah. Everybody here knows that I'm quite well known for going way over time, but since I have to actually prep for a presentation, I can't do that today. So I actually have to try to wrap up in 2 minutes. Normally it takes me like 15, but I'll do my best. But hey, everybody, again, I want to thank you guys too for being in the chat and hanging out with us today. I hope everybody had your head blown big time with new information, good stuff. Bob, thanks again so much. I'm glad I have this excuse to call you so we could chat and catch up.
Let's do it again. Love that. Thanks, my friend, for reaching out. And it's an honor to be here. Hope
and there's a ton of other stuff that I know we can talk about. So we will definitely have you back when you have some time, and ask Con if he's interested in hanging out with us too, for some time. And
we'll do.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. So anyways, I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to go through some things real quick, but I'm going to close out your video so you can hang out in the chat and say hi to folks if you want and whatnot. But as far as the video goes, I will be saying goodbye. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, friend.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Thanks again so much for hanging out with us today for the hour of TLD chat. It's fantastic to be able to get to do this while I'm on the road still, instead of having to, at the last minute, ask somebody to fill in for me like I did yesterday. Thank you very much, Luis, for jumping in and cranking that up, and Sam and Katie and who else was on yesterday? I don't remember who was in the other box. Oh, was it Joe? No. Mark Lassoff maybe was in there. I don't know. But anyways, thanks to everybody. You guys are fantastic for keeping these conversations going when I am unable to. And I do appreciate that a lot. So anyways, hit up the website, tldc.us, to check out everything, the recordings and all of the notes. We'll make sure to get those up as soon as we can. I am hopefully going to be streaming my keynote to this channel. If everybody saw in the list of events on the Crowdcast site, Luis put the pressure on me and actually created the link to get the keynote actually started. I was kind of wasn't sure if I really wanted to stream it or not, but I have no choice because Sam's going to do it for me. So I have to end this because I still have some prep to do. So anyways, again, thanks everybody so much. This was tons of fun. And don't forget to check out Bob and Apply Synergies and the work that they do. And if you're really super psyched and into this whole performance support side of the work that we do, hit up their community as well. I do remember people. I have had friends of mine. I know friends that are in it and are part of that. And heck, I should actually be a part of it. I don't know why I'm not. I probably am, and I'm signed up maybe, and just I forgot about it. I don't know. It tends to happen with me, but I'll get back in for sure now. But yeah, all good stuff. Great folks. Great conversation again, man. This was one of my favorites in a long time. So. It's all good. And Bob, again, thank you very much. It's all good time. So I'm at 10:01. Yes, it's a record. I'm out at only 1 minute after, not 15 after. Adios, everybody. Have a great day.